When we talk about reversing muscle loss, especially as we age, there's one daily habit that makes an immediate impact, something so fundamental yet overlooked. It's resistance. Resistance in the form of physical tension, not just mentally pushing through the day, but physically challenging your body with intentional, controlled stress. And here's what most people don't realize. You don't need a gym membership, heavy weights, or even a full hour of your time. What you need is consistency, intention, and a strategy that speaks to how your biology is designed to respond. Because the science is clear, muscle loss isn't just a slow decline you have to accept. It's a signal that your body hasn't received the proper stimulus to grow. Every single day, your muscles are in a constant state of flux. They're either being built up through protein synthesis or broken down through a process called catabolism. And the tipping point between those two states depends on whether or not you're sending your body the signal that muscle is still necessary. That signal is resistance training. When you contract a muscle against resistance, whether that's lifting your own body weight, using a resistance band, or simply doing slow, controlled movements, you activate tiny sensors in your muscle fibers. These sensors are known as mechanoreceptors, and their entire job is to translate physical stress into a biological message. This muscle is being used. Keep it, grow it, strengthen it. What's fascinating is how quickly the body begins to respond. Studies show that just 2 weeks of consistent resistance training, even light resistance, can lead to significant increases in muscle protein synthesis and neuromuscular activation. We're not talking about massive transformations in physique, but measurable, functional changes, better balance, more strength, improved energy, and all of this starts to show up in as little as 14 days. The key is in the frequency and the quality of the signal. One solid session a week won't cut it. It's the daily engagement that keeps those molecular pathways active, specifically the mTOR pathway, which governs muscle growth. And you don't have to go to war with your body. You just need to commit to a ritual. 10 to 20 minutes of movement that includes pushing, pulling, squatting, and hinging. Think about a wall push-up, a bodyweight squat to a chair, a glute bridge from the floor. These are foundational human movements. They send signals to your nervous system that you're still here, still capable, still requiring strength. Even something as seemingly modest as isometric holds, where you hold a contraction without moving, has been shown to activate muscle fibers deeply. Planks, wall sits, and holding a squat at the bottom position can light up your muscle tissue and prime it for growth. These are tools anyone can use, no matter the starting point. And the moment you apply resistance, you're no longer just moving, you're instructing your biology. You're telling your body, I need this muscle. I intend to keep this strength. Here's where it gets even more exciting. The effects aren't isolated to the muscles themselves. Regular resistance training improves insulin sensitivity, meaning your body uses nutrients more efficiently. It elevates growth hormone and testosterone levels naturally. It increases mitochondrial density, giving you more energy at a cellular level. These are not minor effects. These are the very foundations of how we stay vital as we age. And if you've been inactive for a while, it's not too late. In fact, the body responds incredibly well after a period of rest. It's what researchers call muscle memory, where previously trained muscle fibers regain strength faster due to existing nuclei in the cells. So even if you haven't exercised in years, the gains can come faster than you'd think, because your body remembers. But you must begin, and you must repeat, because the secret isn't intensity, it's consistency. You could do just 5 exercises each day. 5 movements done with focus and control. That's enough to shift the biology. That's enough to begin reversing the spiral of muscle loss and instead begin the climb back to strength. What you do with your body each day sends a message. Make sure that message is clear, loud, and consistent. Tell your body it's still needed, still valuable, and still strong, because it is. If you want to reverse muscle loss, what you do in the gym or in your living room with resistance bands is only half the equation. The other half, what really determines whether those muscles grow or wither, happens in your kitchen. More specifically, it happens in the food you choose to eat right after you move, and even more critically, what kind of protein you put into your body each day. Because the truth is, without the right kind of protein, your body simply doesn't have the raw material it needs to rebuild muscle tissue, no matter how hard you train. Muscle growth isn't automatic. It's triggered by effort, yes, but it's completed by recovery, and that recovery is built on amino acids. And among all amino acids, one stands out: leucine. This one compound plays a unique role. It acts as a switch for muscle protein synthesis. That means when you consume leucine, rich protein sources, your body gets a clear signal to start building muscle. Without enough leucine, that signal is muted, even if you're working out consistently. So while total protein intake matters, the quality of that protein matters even more. Let's simplify this. Imagine your muscle cells like a construction site. Resistance training is the alarm that tells the workers to show up, but leucine is the actual tool in their hands. Without it, there's no progress. And the best sources of leucine are complete proteins foods that contain all the essential amino acids. You'll find them in things like eggs, dairy, chicken, fish, lean red meat, and high-quality whey protein. Even plant-based eaters can get there, but they often need to combine multiple sources like rice and beans or lentils and quinoa to get the same effect. Now here's what science tells us about timing and dose. To truly activate muscle protein synthesis in older adults, the population most vulnerable to muscle loss, you need about 5 to 3 grams of leucine per meal. Practically speaking, that translates to around 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein in one sitting. Not spread out over the day in tiny snacks, but concentrated doses. That's where a lot of people miss the mark. They eat a low-protein breakfast, maybe a small lunch, and then load up on dinner. But your body doesn't store protein like it stores fat or carbs. It needs a fresh supply every few hours, especially after you train. There's also this misconception that older adults need less protein. That couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, aging muscles become more resistant to growth signals. It's called anabolic resistance, and the only way to overcome it is by hitting that protein threshold consistently. Not just once a day. Every single meal should be built around it. Think of your plate like this: protein first, everything else around it. When you anchor your meals that way, your body starts to respond. Recovery improves. Muscle soreness decreases. Strength returns. And most importantly, the spiral of muscle loss slows down, and in many cases, reverses. Let's be clear, this isn't about bodybuilding. This is about functional strength. The kind of strength that lets you stand up from a chair without using your hands. The kind that protects you from falls, helps you carry groceries, or pick up your grandkids. It's independence. And the fuel for that independence is the protein you eat every day. There are moments in your day that are opportunities to build or break down. Every meal is one of them. Now, some people hear this and think they need to buy expensive supplements or drink shakes all day. That's not necessary. What's necessary is awareness. If you train in the morning, you follow it with protein. If you train in the afternoon, you follow it with protein. Even if you're not training that day, you still prioritize protein. Because your body is always rebuilding every minute of every day, and you're either helping it or holding it back. And here's a powerful shift. When you start eating this way, everything else begins to improve. Energy, clarity, mood, sleep. That's because amino acids don't just build muscle. They're the backbone of neurotransmitters, hormones, and enzymes. Your entire physiology begins to recalibrate when you nourish it properly. So, you've got the training in place. That's the signal. Now give your body the building blocks it's waiting for. Make your meals intentional. Prioritize high-quality protein. Hit your leucine threshold, and watch your strength return. Most people think muscle is built in the gym, that it's built during push-ups, squats, or lifting something heavy. But that's only the trigger. The actual construction, the repair and rebuilding of muscle fibers happens later, and more specifically, while you sleep. And not just any sleep. I'm talking about deep, restorative, uninterrupted sleep. Because if you're not sleeping well, no matter how dialed in your workouts are or how perfect your nutrition is, you're leaving most of your progress on the table. Your body builds when you're off, not on. And sleep is the most powerful anabolic state you can enter. See, during deep sleep, something remarkable happens. Growth hormone gets released in pulses naturally, rhythmically, especially in the first few hours of your night. And growth hormone is critical for tissue repair, fat metabolism, and yes, muscle growth. Without it, you can lift all you want, eat all the protein in the world, but your body won't regenerate effectively. Sleep isn't passive. It's intensely active behind the scenes, and when it's compromised, whether due to late night screen time, poor nutrition, or stress, the entire recovery cycle gets blunted. This is where the gap usually lies. People push themselves physically, thinking they're doing everything right, but they stay up late scrolling their phone, or they have that extra cup of coffee in the afternoon, or they eat a heavy meal right before bed. All of that delays the onset of deep sleep, and when that happens, the cascade of recovery hormones, testosterone, melatonin, and especially growth hormone gets disrupted. You wake up groggy, your muscles feel sore for longer, you lose that edge, and over time, your body starts breaking down more than it builds up. That's muscle loss in real time, silent, slow, but consistent. Now, it's not just about the number of hours you sleep, but the quality of that sleep. 7 to 8 hours is the benchmark, but if you're tossing and turning all night, or waking up frequently, your nervous system never really gets to downshift into that regenerative state. Your heart rate stays elevated, cortisol remains high, and your muscles stay in a catabolic environment longer than they should. It's like trying to build a house during a storm. Nothing sticks. So how do you shift your biology to make sleep your most powerful recovery tool? You start by respecting the evening. What you do in the last 2 to 3 hours of your day directly impacts the depth of your sleep. First, dim the lights. That sounds simple, but it's a direct signal to your brain that nighttime is here, and it starts the melatonin production process. Second, shut off screens or at least reduce blue light exposure. Your brain's natural rhythm is guided by light, and artificial light at night sends the wrong message, stay alert, not wind down. Third, don't eat large, heavy meals right before bed. Late night eating, especially high carb or high sugar foods, leads to elevated insulin and glucose levels, which delays the release of growth hormone. You may fall asleep, but your body isn't repairing. Even worse, this habit fragments sleep, leading to more wake-ups and lighter stages of rest. If you're hungry late at night, a small portion of protein like casein or a magnesium-rich food like pumpkin seeds can actually support deeper sleep without disrupting hormones. Now, there's another layer most people overlook. Your brain needs a wind-down ritual. Just like you warm up before a workout, you need to cool down before bed. That could be reading, stretching, deep breathing, anything that signals to your nervous system, it's safe now. You can let go. Because we live in a world that's constantly on. Constant noise, notifications, stress. If you don't create space for your body to slow down, it won't do it on its own. And here's something powerful to remember. Better sleep doesn't just build muscle, it protects your mind. It improves memory, reaction time, emotional stability, and willpower. These things are all connected. You can't separate physical strength from mental clarity. When sleep improves, everything improves. You feel stronger not just in your body, but in your focus, your confidence, your energy. So if you're serious about reversing muscle loss, don't just look at what you do during the day. Look closely at how you treat your nights. Respect sleep. Protect it like it's a training session. Make it a priority. Because if you can win your nights, your body will take care of the rest. When people struggle to build muscle, even when they're working out consistently and eating enough protein, there's often one hidden habit that quietly sabotages all of it. It's not a lack of motivation. It's not genetics. It's something most people do without thinking twice, especially at night. And it's this: eating large, high-sugar, high-carb meals too close to bedtime. That one habit, repeated night after night, can completely block the hormonal processes your body needs to recover, grow, and rebuild muscle. And for many people, that's the wall they keep hitting. They train hard, they feel sore, but the progress is frustratingly slow. The problem isn't in the workout, it's in the way the day ends. What you eat in the last few hours of your day determines what kind of environment your body will be operating in overnight. And that window, from the moment your head hits the pillow to the moment you wake up, is when most of your recovery takes place. But if you flood your system with processed carbohydrates or sugary snacks before bed, you raise your insulin and cortisol levels at exactly the wrong time. Insulin, which is necessary in moderation during the day to manage blood sugar, becomes disruptive at night when it's elevated. It suppresses the release of growth hormone, which your body relies on to repair tissues, including muscle. Growth hormone pulses during deep sleep, especially within the first couple of sleep cycles, and those pulses are blunted when insulin is high. Now, cortisol, your body's primary stress hormone, should be low in the evening. That's what allows melatonin to rise and promote restful, deep sleep. But sugary foods and highly processed snacks act as stressors on the body. They trigger a blood sugar spike, followed by a crash, and that crash often wakes you up in the middle of the night. Even if you don't fully wake, your sleep quality suffers. You miss those critical deep phases where the real rebuilding happens. Over time, you're left with suboptimal sleep, higher inflammation, and stalled muscle repair, even though your workouts and diet might otherwise seem on point. Think about this like a chain reaction. You eat late, insulin and cortisol go up, melatonin and growth hormone go down, deep sleep gets fragmented, and your body spends the night managing glucose fluctuations instead of repairing muscle tissue. That's how one simple habit, repeated night after night, silently undermines your strength. It's not just about how much you eat. It's when you eat that shifts your entire hormonal rhythm. But the fix is surprisingly simple. All it takes is awareness and a few small adjustments. First, aim to finish your last meal at least 2 to 3 hours before bed. Give your body time to digest and shift into recovery mode. That's when the hormonal environment becomes more favorable for muscle repair. Growth hormone can rise naturally, melatonin in production isn't blocked, and you enter sleep in a low insulin, low cortisol state. That's the zone your body needs to be in to actually build on the progress you made during the day. Now, if you find yourself hungry before bed, which does happen especially if you've trained hard that day, the goal isn't to go to bed starving. Instead, reach for something that supports recovery without hijacking your sleep. A small portion of casein protein, for example, digests slowly and provides a steady stream of amino acids through the night. That can actually enhance overnight muscle synthesis. Another option is magnesium. Rich foods like a handful of almonds or a calming herbal tea. Magnesium helps calm the nervous system and supports deep sleep. The key is to avoid sugar, starch, and anything that spikes your blood glucose. It's not about being perfect, it's about being strategic. Once you align your evening routine with your body's natural rhythm, everything begins to shift. You fall asleep faster, you sleep deeper, and you wake up more recovered. And that recovery shows up in your training. You lift more, move better, gain strength faster, and it starts to feel effortless because you're no longer working against your biology. We spend so much time trying to optimize workouts, looking for the best exercise routines, the most efficient way to stimulate muscle. But the truth is, most of that effort is wasted if we're not allowing our bodies the space and the conditions to grow. And growth doesn't happen while you're doing the reps. It happens after. It happens when you sleep. And more specifically, it happens when you don't sabotage that sleep with a late night spike in sugar or stress. So if you're serious about reversing muscle loss, pay close attention to your evenings. Don't let one habit quietly steal your progress. Your body is primed to grow. Give it the chance to do exactly that. Most people don't think of cold as a muscle building tool. They associate it with discomfort, maybe even punishment. But cold, when used the right way, can actually become one of the most powerful allies in reversing muscle loss, especially as we age. The key is understanding how to use it, when to use it, and why it works. Because the science around cold exposure isn't just about mental toughness or reducing inflammation. It's about shifting your internal environment in a way that enhances recovery, boosts hormonal response, and stimulates the very systems responsible for preserving and rebuilding muscle tissue. The idea isn't to torture yourself with ice baths every morning. What matters is short, controlled exposure, cold showers, cool plunges, or even targeted cold packs used at the right times. These brief experiences of cold send a strong adaptive signal to your body. When the skin is exposed to cold, your blood vessels constrict, pulling blood toward your core to protect vital organs. As you warm back up, those vessels dilate, flooding your tissues with oxygen, rich blood. That rebound effect flushes out metabolic waste and promotes healing. It's like giving your muscles a reset button after physical stress, and that's just the start. Cold exposure also taps directly into your nervous system. It activates the vagus nerve, which helps shift the body from a sympathetic state, fight or flight, into a parasympathetic state, rest, digest, and repair. URAIMING for MUSCLE, OUT, your recovery. Training puts your body in a stressed state, which is necessary to stimulate growth. But staying in that state too long leads to breakdown. Cold exposure helps close that loop, signaling the body that it's time to shift gears and rebuild. What's even more compelling is the hormonal response. Cold exposure has been shown to increase levels of norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter that boosts alertness and focus, but also plays a role in reducing inflammation and protecting muscle from catabolic breakdown. In some studies, cold exposure even supports a mild increase in testosterone, which further aids in maintaining lean mass, particularly in older adults whose natural levels have started to decline. You're not forcing your body, you're guiding it. You're working with your biology instead of against it. Another fascinating benefit is the activation of brown fat. Unlike regular white fat, brown fat is metabolically active. It burns energy to produce heat, and in doing so, improves insulin sensitivity and increases overall metabolic function. Why does this matter for muscle? Because better insulin sensitivity means nutrients get delivered to your muscle tissue more efficiently. It's like opening the gates wider for recovery, for repair, and ultimately for growth. Cold exposure helps train your body to be more metabolically flexible, to respond to stress and adapt in a healthier way. And this kind of adaptability is exactly what aging muscle needs to stay strong. But timing matters. If you expose your body to cold immediately after a strength training session, it may blunt some of the inflammation that's necessary for adaptation. That acute inflammatory response is part of what signals your muscles to grow. So the ideal time to incorporate cold exposure is not right after lifting but later in the day. Perhaps in the evening after a long walk or a few hours post-training. That's when you get the recovery benefits without interfering with the adaptation process. Used wisely, cold becomes a recovery amplifier, not a growth interrupter. And here's something subtle but powerful: cold exposure builds discipline. There's a psychological resilience that comes from doing something difficult, intentionally, every day. That willingness to step into discomfort, even for a few minutes, rewires your mind. It reinforces that you're in control, that you're building strength from the inside out. And that mindset carries over into everything else: your workouts, your sleep habits, your nutrition. That small, repeated choice to engage with discomfort in a structured way has ripple effects far beyond the minutes you spend under the cold water. You don't need to go to extremes: a 2-minute cold shower, a 5-minute cold plunge, even placing a cold pack on your neck or upper back in the evening. These are small, sustainable practices. And when done consistently, they can help restore hormonal balance, reduce chronic inflammation, and enhance the conditions your body needs to build muscle efficiently. This isn't a trend, it's physiology. It's rooted in how your nervous system, your endocrine system, and your muscles interact. So if you're doing everything else training with intention, fueling your body with the right protein, prioritizing sleep, don't overlook the role of cold. It's a missing piece for many people, a reset for your body, a recovery switch, and sometimes just a few minutes a day is all it takes to create that shift. When we think about reversing muscle loss, the mind often goes straight to lifting weights, eating more protein, maybe even taking supplements or optimizing sleep. And those things matter absolutely. But there's one daily habit that gets overlooked, something so simple that people forget it's even part of the equation: walking. Not power walking, not hiking up mountains, just walking, with purpose, with consistency, and with presence. It's not flashy, but it's one of the most effective ways to improve the very systems that support muscle growth, longevity, and metabolic health. Walking is foundational to human biology. It's how we're designed to move. And while resistance training builds muscle, walking is what supports the entire environment that muscle lives in. It enhances circulation, delivering oxygen and nutrients more efficiently to recovering tissues. It improves mitochondrial function, helping your body generate more energy. And most importantly, it reduces the low-grade inflammation that often sabotages muscle maintenance as we age. That inflammation isn't always something you feel, but it quietly chips away at muscle strength and function over time. Walking helps suppress it, and it does more than just burn calories. When you walk regularly, especially in a fasted state or after meals, you train your body to become more insulin sensitive. That means your muscles are better able to absorb glucose and amino acids from your meals, turning food into fuel and fuel into strength. It also helps keep your blood sugar stable throughout the day, which reduces cortisol spikes. That's important because chronic cortisol elevation not only impacts your sleep and mood, it accelerates muscle breakdown. Something as accessible as a 30-minute walk can help stabilize those internal rhythms and bring your body back into balance. What's more, walking helps keep the nervous system in check. While intense workouts can activate the sympathetic nervous system, the fight-or-flight response walking does the opposite. It calms, it slows the breathing, lowers heart rate, and brings the body into a parasympathetic state where healing and recovery thrive. Especially when done outdoors, under natural light, walking has the added benefit of regulating your circadian rhythm. It helps anchor your sleep-wake cycle, making it easier to fall asleep at night and wake up feeling refreshed. And we already know that deep, high-quality sleep is where the muscle building process really takes place. It's also worth considering the mechanical benefits of walking. Each step engages multiple muscle groups: glutes, hamstrings, calves, core. Over time, this gentle activation preserves strength, improves coordination, and supports balance. That's vital as we age, not just for maintaining muscle, but for preventing falls, staying mobile, and preserving independence. Walking reinforces joint health too. It stimulates synovial fluid production in the joints, keeping them lubricated and functional. It's a kind of low-impact, full-body therapy that doesn't require equipment or planning, just the willingness to move. And then there's the mental side. Walking clears the mind in a way that no other form of exercise quite does. It's meditative. It creates space for reflection, for ideas, for emotional regulation. And that state of clarity contributes to better choices throughout the rest of your day. You're more likely to follow through with your training, stay consistent with your nutrition, and regulate your sleep patterns when your mind isn't cluttered with stress. Physical and mental health are deeply intertwined. One affects the other, and walking is one of those rare practices that benefits both simultaneously. There's also a compounding effect. People who walk regularly tend to move more overall. They become more aware of their bodies, more connected to how they feel. That awareness builds momentum, and over time, the daily walk becomes more than a habit. It becomes an anchor, something reliable, something grounding. It's a baseline of movement that supports everything else. If you train hard one day, walking the next helps flush out soreness and accelerate recovery. If you didn't sleep well, a walk in the morning can reset your rhythm and increase alertness. It's incredibly adaptive. It meets you where you are. The point isn't to replace resistance training or protein intake with walking. It's to understand how all these pieces work together. Resistance training builds, protein feeds, sleep repairs, and walking supports the entire system. It's the glue, the quiet force that holds everything else together. And when you commit to doing it every day, not just as exercise, but as a ritual, a discipline, a mental reset, you start to see just how powerful it really is. So if your goal is to reverse muscle loss, not just temporarily, but long-term, walk with intention every day. Move your body, breathe deeply, let your mind settle. Because sometimes the simplest things are the ones that create the most lasting change.